Hello, and welcome to this Christmas special episode of the Product Thinking Podcast. Just like last year, with 2024 coming to a close, I've been reflecting over some of our most downloaded episodes and the key insights which our amazing guests had to share. From product and user research to overcoming decision-making challenges at large companies and setting business goals, this episode has you covered with this year's highlights. Let's dive in. We'll start by hearing from Steve Portigal, who says that research is about finding answers to what you don't know that you don't know. Our conversation turned out to be one of the most popular episodes ever on the show. Over to Steve.
Research is about what you don't know that you don't know. And how big is that aperture? Like, how much appetite does anyone have for that question? I'm always going to be interested in that and sort of try to get to what I don't know that I don't know. Better or worse, I think there are so many closed-ended things. We need to understand this thing. We're at this point in the development. We don't need to go to people. We've gone to people in the past. We understand this larger context. It's all taking place on the screen.
Next, Steve walks us through how he has witnessed user research evolving over the years.
For this environment, we're trying to tease apart like a bunch of interconnected things. I mean, I've long wondered about user research, the need for user research and the need for user researchers. One is an activity and one is a job title or a role. And that's definitely something that has changed over the years, like who does research. I think maybe people have always been talking to customers, whether they had a label for it or we have a term and we have books and conferences and courses you can take.
Thanks again to Steve for his invaluable insights. Quincy Hunte taught us about the challenges of making decisions at large and complex organizations and what tools are available to overcome them.
In organization, you have these teams. You want everybody to be involved in helping make the right decision sometimes. But that mindset of having everybody involved in the decision sometimes adds a level of lag and it slows down the complexity or slows it down when there's a very complex decision that has to be made. There's a very common pattern. You don't know when to agree on issues or challenges that are very contentious or different from what you traditionally do. It goes up and down the executive team. The executive team is expecting the teams or the product management teams to make the decision. The product management teams are saying, no, this is above our pay grade. We want the executives to make a decision. And there's that constant loop. So I think that has been a challenge. The other thing too, that I see quite a bit in terms of a pattern is that people are afraid of making mistakes. People are afraid of making the wrong decision. It creates an environment where no decision is made because nobody wants to make a mistake. Nobody wants to be penalized by it.
Quincy's experience at AWS gives a unique perspective on how to leave product in such companies, providing insights for aspiring decision makers. And it's no surprise as to why he was among the most popular guests from 2024. In 2024, I also had my friends Jeff Gothelf and Josh Seiden back on the show. We discussed how objectives and key results should be aligned with business verticals and how functional goals need to feed into enterprise goals.
So the way that we talk about it is that you should be setting objectives and key results, goals for the organization that you have influence over. If you're an executive and you own a company, like you're in charge of an organization, then you're setting corporate goals, enterprise-wide goals, right? If you're an executive in charge of a business unit, your OKRs are going to be focused on that business unit. You're the authentication team, right? Your OKR should be focused on making the easiest, smoothest, most efficient, most successful authentication process in the world, because that's the world that you can influence, right? When we make this authentication process the best it can be, that actually leads to more folks interacting with the system more quickly, and it reduces our operational costs because we're not getting calls to the call center to reset passwords, right? So that's how we're contributing to the organization by making the best authentication process possible.
Josh shares his perspective on OKRs, focus, and alignment, providing valuable insights from our listeners.
One of the ideas that I like a lot about OKRs is an idea from Christina Woodkey. We use OKRs to talk about what is the focus of our work and how to align focuses across large groups of people, which means that there's going to be stuff that falls outside of OKRs. You hear some people call them KPIs. If we think about focus and alignment, we're trying to get everybody pulling in the same direction. And so the more complicated that your incentive system is, the more directions people have to pull in. But when you start multiplying the incentives by the number of employees you've got, everybody's got their own incentives in addition to team incentives. Now you can measure individual performance, but you've just messed up your ability to align all of these people by giving them contradictory incentives. The reason you don't use OKRs for individual incentives is exactly that. You want to simplify the alignment process by introducing as little noise into the process as you possibly can.
This was a great duo to have on the show, allowing for a rewarding discussion on OKRs for focus and alignment. As a fellow coach and educator in the product sector, I loved having Kate Leto on the show this year. She had a lot to say on the importance of coaching and developing leadership skills.
Where I think coaching is super powerful as a leadership skill is that it really does help people realize they've got the answers to a lot of these challenges already within themselves. They just need a little space and perhaps some nudging and some questioning to help them figure it out for themselves. And by teaching people, helping people figure out how to do that, that takes a lot of pressure off the leader or manager, right? Because you don't have to answer all the questions. You don't have to come up with all the solutions to all the problems because you've got a team of people who can do it for themselves.
Kate's knowledge on leadership and coaching provides a lot of value for those looking to excel in their product career, but also enables our current leaders to effectively nurture existing talent. We wrap up this episode with Leah Tharin's thoughts on the role of growth in identifying business opportunities across acquisition, retention, and monetization, while focusing on activation to drive long-term success.
So my first touch point as in growth was to create business cases outside of a product function that go over all functions of the business. And nobody's doing this. Product doesn't care. Sales definitely does not care what happens in the product as long as they can sell better, and selling is not the ultimate goal. Retaining is the ultimate goal. And marketing also doesn't care. So what growth usually does is they try to find the best opportunity, whether it is in acquisition, without doing the entirety of marketing's job, whether it is in retention or whether it is in monetization. And this is why we talk about usually activation.
My conversation with Leah on product functions and how to stimulate product growth was amazing. These areas are so important and applicable for almost any business, and this is why her sharp insights made it into one of our most memorable episodes of 2024. Thank you to all my incredible guests this year, and a shout out to all of those who weren't mentioned today for coming on and sharing their stories. I hope you enjoyed this Christmas special of the Product Thinking Podcast. I'll be back next week to discuss predictions for 2025. My final thank you goes to all of our wonderful listeners for tuning in each week as we reached over 100,000 downloads a month and helped us get 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. And we crossed 200 episodes. Thanks for making this podcast a success. I couldn't have done it without you. And I hope in 2025, you continue to write me to dearmelissa.com, asking me all of your burning product management questions. Season's greetings and all the best to you and your families for the new year. We'll see you in 2025.